Well, good morning, KOTA Territory. Welcome to your KOTA Now First Sip. We're episode 18. It is quite a bit of time. I think it's 3 episodes with you, and then the first 15 were with Kate. I'm excited. So far, we've been having great conversations.
We have.
Topics on point. We've kind of switched the little flow of it too. Instead of 4, we now switched to 2 topics. But back to the point at kind of topic at hand. Thank you for joining us this morning. Sit down, grab a cup of coffee wherever you're watching us on YouTube. If you are watching us on YouTube, please be sure to subscribe. If you're watching us on Facebook, please follow our Facebook page here on KOTA Territory, as it'll keep you updated with the going-ons of the day, at least here in KOTA Territory. But for now, I'm Humberto Giles Sanchez.
And I'm Mimi Herrick.
And today we have 2 topics for you: healthy boundaries and kind of talking a little bit about cooking with your kids. But to start us off, Mimi, let's talk about some of those healthy boundaries we talked about on Good Morning Black Hills, kind of picking up where we left off earlier this morning.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about how to scale back, but one of the most important things about setting boundaries is knowing your limit and sticking to it. You don't want to find yourself, going back on those boundaries, because then did you really end up setting anything in the first place?
No, and it kind of does the opposite of what you want it to do. Whereas, instead of the reduced anxiety and reduced, stress, it actually increases your stress and it increases your anxiety levels. So you kind of don't want that. All that work that you put into kind of setting these boundaries with whoever you are trying to set these with, it ruins the whole process.
Yeah.
And if it is for yourself, then yeah.
It's hard to stick with them. It is one of those things where you have to be firm, maybe not rude, but firm with your boundaries, being able to say no, and sticking to that decision, because if people know that they can cross that line with you and you won't have any consequences for them, then they know that they can continue to cross that line with you over and over again.
No, exactly. And then also, and I know I mentioned a lot about, setting boundaries with other people, but like you keep mentioning, you can set boundaries for yourself as well, whether it is at work, whether it is in the workplace, at home, while you're trying to do tasks and other stuff like that.
I have to set boundaries with TikTok.
Yeah, no. I feel that, especially with a lot of social media. I have to you recently showed me the little feature that
screen time on iPhones.
Yep.
You can set a time limit for social media. I think my TikTok time limit is 20 minutes. I often ignore it. And then my Instagram one is 30 minutes. Also often ignore that, but I'm getting better at it.
Yeah,
I'm ignoring it less.
No, and I'm actually using that along with the TikTok setting that you're able to kind of set it on the app itself, where it kind of limits you. So not only do I have a limit for that one, I also have the limit for the Apple one in case I ignore the TikTok one. So that way it reinforces that. And it gets annoying at that point.
It really does show that sticking to it with a boundary is all about your personal limit. I know that if I sit on TikTok with no limit, I will lift up my phone and I will see an hour has passed instead of, the 15, 20-minute break I wanted.
Yes, and after that hour, you still continue to scroll because it's like, it was only an hour. I can go for another one. And it's addicting. Yes, so. It's not good. But yes, follow through, set those goals, and in some cases, something that I was reading is maybe set consequences, If you do kind of fall back on one of your boundaries that you were trying to set, maybe implement a consequence there. Something light, not hard on yourself, not extreme. We're talking about maybe you set a consequence where, if you failed it, then maybe the next day you don't use it at all. That is your consequence. It's like, oh, well, maybe I can't use it anymore. Or if in other cases, if it is an app or a social media app you're trying to not use as much, maybe delete the app after you break the kind of the boundary that you set for yourself. Delete the social media app, and then maybe later on, when you feel a little bit more comfortable, re-download it. It's something small, not too extreme to the point where you're like, it's life-changing, but it's tiny enough and impactful enough that
you'll feel it.
Yes.
And I definitely need to break up with TikTok for good. I think with the ban, I'm just nervous to get rid of it and have it
that's
disappear from the
fair.
App Store again. But
And if it's if that does go through at some point, then
we'll be
you can sell your phone a lot. You can sell your phone for a lot more, because there was at one point there was a story that came out that that a company was buying them for like a resale price because it had the app. So that was something. I was kind of shocked. Yeah, it was really expensive for just a phone having the application. I mean, that was banned on the App Store, but it was insane. I personally was like, why?
Yeah.
But other than that, I mean, yes, you know.
Let's jump right into this next topic here, you know, now that we've kind of covered boundaries from today, and go to what we were talking about yesterday, which is cooking with kids, which is a lot more fun.
No, exactly. And it's, like I mentioned yesterday, it's something near and dear to me just because it's kind of how I grew up and kind of how I got a big interest in baking.
Yeah, I was going to say you're very big into cooking and baking and all that.
Yes, I'm huge into it. I think I mean, and it started with my mother. You know, as the little kid, my mom kept telling me, "It's like, well, you better learn how to cook. You better learn how to cook, or else you're never going to get married." And then as a little kid, that terrified the heck out of me.
Ooh, that's a funny one.
After that, I learned how to cook I learned how to cook and stuck with it. But also at the same time, as a little kid, you don't realize that it's like there's some things that your parents kind of prepare you for, whether it is for the responsibility of cooking for yourself as you get older, responsibility of kind of food management and diet management as well, which is, you know, as a little kid, I kind of appreciate that. Now as an adult, I really appreciate that I learned that at a young age.
Yeah, for sure. And you can learn a lot of really cool skills for young kids when they are, you know, helping you out in the kitchen. A really cool one that I think is math, you know, adding and subtracting those fractions in recipes. Like, let's say you want to double your pancake batter. Teaching your kids, okay, so you have a half a cup of whatever, what is that doubled? Oh, a full cup, yeah.
Exactly,
so there's a lot of great ways that you can, you know, introduce sort of those educational aspects. Some other ones is reading, obviously, with reading the recipe, and science with, you know, again, that doubling what happens when you add, you know, baking soda versus baking powder.
Right, like what are the difference between that? Why in some recipes do you have baking powder and in some others you have baking soda? Why not have both and stuff like that? But it's really cool, especially when you dive, I guess science dives really deep into the baking aspect of it, because it has a little bit more science. Not saying that cooking doesn't, because it does, but it's a little bit more.
But on that, with more of the cooking side, definitely nutrition, teaching your kids, you know, what's healthy and good for them while you're cooking things. And there's a lot of really encouraging benefits that kids can get from helping you out in the kitchen.
Yeah, and there was something that you mentioned yesterday, the age. When's the best time for children to start learning?
Well, you can start them as young as 2, as long as they can, you know, kind of walk and toddle around in the kitchen. But they can help you with scrubbing fruits and veggies, carrying unbreakable items to the table, so like plastic cups. Emphasis on the unbreakable, especially with the little ones at 2 years old. They are prone to a mess. And then wash and tear lettuce or break bread into pieces. I know that was one that I used to do around Thanksgiving all the time with my mom, is breaking the bread was always my job when I was little. But then once you're at 3, they can start pouring liquids into the batter. They can mix things. They can shake liquids in a closed container. Make sure it is sealed or you will end up with a mess. You know, spreading butter with, you know, like dull knives, like plastic ones, kid silverware, kneading dough, you know, serving things and putting things in the trash for you and helping you, you know, set or clear the table. And then 4 and 5-year-olds can like start juicing things, peeling things, mashing things, cutting things, again with like a plastic knife, something dull, pressing cookie cutters, measuring the dry ingredients, cracking eggs, setting the table, wiping up, cleaning up. It's once they get a little older, then they can start helping you with everything, and that's honestly the goal.
Yeah, you know, it's kind of funny that you mentioned the making sure that it's that's a plastic container and not something that can shatter, because one of my more fond memories, even though it was terrifying as a little kid.
You probably created a mess.
Yes, I did, and I got a good yelling from my mom. But it was actually quite funny. I started learning how to bake at the age of 5. And it was like, I wasn't allowed to grab the knives because my mom was worried about that well-being, especially if I drop
especially for the littles, yeah.
Yes, especially when, you know, your mother has like a ceramic container set, ceramic bowl set, and you grab the bowl with the flour, and then all of a sudden, little kid hands happen, and then your mom looks at you and is like, no.
Don't do that.
Yes, but no. 100%. Yes.
I think all of that is so fun. And, you know, cooking with your kids also, they'll be able to memorize recipes eventually. I know I have a bunch of like family casserole dishes and chilies memorized from the amount of times that my mom and I have done them together.
No, exactly. And something that's really interesting, that's very unique, and it's really cool because I read it on, oh my goodness, it was one of the sources here. So I found a lot of these studies from 5 places. It was We Sprout, SR Nutrition, University of Maryland, Occupational Therapy Helping Children, and Kids Planet Nurseries. But I forgot which one it was, but one of these sources was telling me that, you know, cooking can go beyond more than just, you know, learning a life skill. It can actually correlate with some like emotional things.
Yes,
you can get attached with certain recipes, you know, later in life when you're making that casserole or that steak, you know, you bring back a memory of maybe when you were younger, you made that with your parents.
Yeah,
so it kind of builds
and I mean, when we were doing that baking segment around the holidays, both of the recipes that I used, or all of them, all 3, are family recipes that I remember making from childhood. I know I included that one picture of me at my grandma's house with the sugar cookies when we did that. So it's you can have a lot of fun with it, and it is a memory that your kids will hold on to.
Exactly, no, and it helps develop a little bit of emotional maturity as well as the child.
Especially when things go wrong.
Yes.
You know, not everything's always going to turn out perfect and look like a Pinterest board when you're cooking.
Exactly.
It will turn into a huge mess, and hopefully you'll be able to teach your kids, you know, sometimes things happen when you're cooking and you just go with it.
And I mean, hey, if another big crucial kind of point about this is if your child is very picky and they don't like vegetables, this actually kind of encourages them to eat the veggie, eat the stuff that they made. So you can have them help you while you're preparing vegetables, while you're cutting those carrots, while you're kind of getting that lettuce or peeling that lettuce off or cutting that onion. You can kind of help them maybe once you're done cutting that vegetable, put it into whatever pot, pan, whatever you're using, and maybe have them like, you know, be part of the process. That kind of encourages them like, hey, you made this, you should try it. It helps encourage that aspect of, you know, making mealtime more enjoyable, making their curiosity kind of peak or kind of spark a little bit in their curiosity, but also boost their confidence, teaches, again, like I said, teaches life skills, it promotes their creativity, and it enhances communication skills between you and the child. Not only that, but it also enhances communication skills throughout their life, whether it is in the classroom, whether it is with other friends and stuff like that. So there's a lot of good pros to kind of doing this with your kid. Personally, like I said, it's very near and dear, so I put a lot of study into the. I did a lot of my research for this just because it is something that's very near and dear to me, since I have very much a lot of fond memories, you know, growing up in a household that was my mom and I, and it was great. I loved it, every minute of it. Learning that was fun, and hopefully some of you out there can kind of start that process if you haven't yet, or continue that process if you have. But either way, those are your 2 topics for today. You know, we kind of covered how to set yourself with healthy boundaries and how to possibly keep those, and then also the benefits of cooking with your child. Yeah. You have anything else to put before we wrap up here, Mimi?
No, thanks for having me. This was awesome, and we'll see you on Thursday.
Yes, we'll see you right back here on Thursday. But for now, I'm Humberto de Sanchez.
And I'm Mimi Herrick.
Have a good day.